Alrighty, so it is now 5 minutes after. So it's already been recording, but we'll just like download the audio and then trim it later. We'll just trim, I guess. I mean, we can just skip it until we see that it's actually when it's time to start. All right, so now that we know it's recording, we know Bryson's here, I'm here. Audio is good for both of us because we've been chatting. So we can go on ahead and take it away. So, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to our fireside chat, the last one of 2023. And we have Bryson Whiteman with us, um, a UI technical artist at Sokay Games. So I'm going to actually let Bryson introduce himself to start.
Okay. Whew. Um, of course I'm gonna start off nervous. I can't
You're
see
fine.
I can't see myself. So okay. All right. So I'm talking to the camera. So, let me see here.
It's
This is
talk, just fine. You're good. You're good. Don't worry about it.
okay. So my name is Bryson Whiteman. I have a business called Sokay, and I've been making games independently for 20 years. Um, and what do I have to say? I consider myself a bit of a generalist because I do art and programming, design, and whatever else in between for my personal projects. And primarily the last, I guess maybe the last 8 years or so, I've been working as a UI technical artist or some form of that. Sometimes it's called a technical designer. And I guess there's probably other names like that. And a lot of times I would consider that it's mainly a position where I'm working with the engineer that will set up buttons and that kind of thing, and then I make it look pretty. You know, that's that's typically how I see it. Make things look pretty, add additional functionality, um, add usability, and maybe transitions, stuff like that. The extras. Um, yeah. So I'm kind of a bit of a mercenary. Um, and I'll do anything, anything for money if it's cool, and if it's an interesting problem to solve. I think what really excites me is just working on things that are visually interesting. And UI happened to be one of those things that I had a lot of experience doing, so I got more work doing.
Nice. Yeah, that is how that happens, where it's like you happen to get a job doing a thing, and then someone else offers you, and then the next thing you know, suddenly you're a specialist.
That's yeah, fell into my lap somehow.
Yeah. So I guess like to start. So I know speaking of your side project, I know you got that visual novel in Godot. How's that going?
Yeah. So in March I started working on um well, first I'll start with saying I've been a bit devoid creatively, um, to say the least. A lot of the work I was doing wasn't necessarily fulfilling, and I didn't think I was getting a lot of the my creative, uh, I didn't have the creative outlet that kind of inspired me to do this stuff in the first place. And so I kind of worked on a few different ideas for a while, tried to mess around with Unreal with some ideas, but it got too complicated. And I tried to bring things back to something more that I could handle on my own. So I came up with this idea for doing a visual novel game, because I like drawing, and I kind of got my start in drawing doing comic books. And so I've been looking forward to try to mess around in that genre, just to have an excuse to tell a story about about a world I created. And so I it took me a while to come up with something that was kind of a hook that would got me to latch on to something. But I came up with this game called Cherry. What no, it's called Cheddar Beach, and it's basically about a coming of age story of a young adult hamster, that's trying to make his way in the big city. He's from out in the boondocks, and he's coming to the big city where things are different. He's staying with his big cousin, and
His big cousin hamster.
yeah, he's half gerbil, so his name's Gerber, and so and so yeah, so it's kind of I kind of crafted it around my perspective of a as a young adult trying to trying to get to a party on a Friday night, that type of thing. Like, where's the party at? How are we gonna get there? How are we gonna get the beer? And what's gonna happen? And it's never whatever what happens is never what you expected to happen, you know. So I wanted to try to turn kind of a mundane life into a game and see how it would turn out, because you know I'm not a super soldier, you know, going from planet to planet killing people in real life, you know. So I wanted to have something make something that kind of spoke from my experiences in life. And anyway, like I just recently got the whole story in from beginning to end. It's about 30 minutes long. It's really like a pilot episode. It's called episode 0, which is like a slice of the game in the middle, like in the somewhere in the middle of the story. Because it kind of, as I was planning out the game, the story that I wanted to tell, it seemed like it was going to take like way too long to actually, you know, make it the length that I wanted it. And I wasn't even sure if the idea was going to work. So I kind of cut back and made a smaller story. It was still too long, but I convinced myself, you know, that this was going to be an easier project because I like to make action games, but the difficult thing is just I need I need to be kind of partnered with a strong animator. And a lot of the times the projects I have is just people that are dedicating or donating their time to to me to, you know, to work towards this idea. So this one I wanted to try to like work within my own limitations. I can draw like a still of a character. I can draw backgrounds. That's what I do for my games normally. And so the game is really built around this idea of just clicking buttons. You know, it's kind of like a it's half, I would say it's like half like point and click adventure game, like a kind of like a streamlined LucasArts, you know, Monkey Island type of thing. Where but you're only given the actions that you can actually do. So you're not it's not a lot of clicking around and being confused and that kind of stuff. So it's kind of like it's it's kind of a linear story, but you have some choices. Every step along the way is kind of your choice to which, you know, which character you talk to that progresses the story. And it kind of jumps through different, I think about 6 different scenes. And yeah, that's yeah. So anyway, I got the whole story in from start to end last night, and I'm so relieved because it seemed like it would never end. I thought I was gonna be here and like oh it's gonna be out in the summer, sure. So but I encountered some technical difficulties along the way, but I kind of got through that, and all the stuff that I was just procrastinating on doing, like absolutely finishing the scripts and
Oh,
kind of processing it into game data.
oh,
So
so you're done, right? We can play it now.
uh so about getting people, you know,
So what had
yeah,
happened was,
yeah, not, you know, it's not ready for human consumption. So it's still like, so I'm basically I got to do a pass of I got to do another art pass, you know.
yeah.
So a lot of I've kind of go through phases of, so when I first started on the game, the first month I just um I wanted to try something different. You know, I wanted to just focus on the creative side, and I had just got an iPad recently, so I wanted to just I wanted to like, how can I make, because I like drawing on an iPad. I hate sitting on the computer working. How can I how can I make, you know, this feel like I'm getting work done, but I'm not actually working, you know? So I wanted to kind of build this whole game around just doing everything on the iPad. So the first month I just sat down and drew the story, kind of drew the places in the story, some of the characters and what it would look like, kind of hypothesize the flow of the game, and then I kind of use that as the like this is what I'm trying, the blueprint of what I'm trying to make. And then I started learning Godot because this is the first Godot project as well, so I picked that up. And so I think the first month of development was just learning Godot and getting it to look like my mockups, and then kind of just like over time I'm just started building in the systems to try to, you know, build I guess the minimum amount of functionality to get the story, like to
Yeah.
figure out what it is.
Question.
Yes.
So, since you're actually working in Godot, and I know you've worked in Unreal, and I'm pretty sure you've worked in
Yeah,
Unity.
Unity I'm probably have the most experience with.
Okay. So I have a question for you. So when you're like jumping into a new tool, so like let's just say like from a UI, from your like UI developer perspective, what's like the first thing you start doing when you're trying to like learn a new engine or a new tool?
So 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 typically when let's say I'm doing a new game, how I will typically work is just um I do thumbnails. I do thumbnails, and I think I would usually start with the UI. Like I might do okay, it can go both ways. So I might start with a little prototype. Okay, I just want the character to move around or do whatever the game is supposed to do. And so jumping into a new tool, I might just focus on if I'm doing the UI, if I'm going the UI route, I would start with thumbnails of like, okay, what would the title screen look like? I need, it doesn't have to be what the real thing is, but or what I just have to figure out how I would lay out the logo, uh, put the menu buttons, so new game, load game. This is how I actually made the game. So I kind of had a mock up of what I wanted to look like. Then I would just go in and just put in placeholder buttons, like kind of rough it in what it's supposed to, kind of where they're supposed to be. Put buttons where they're supposed to be, then figure out how to make them do something. So if it's supposed to take you to the setting screen, how do I go from the title screen to the setting screen? So I would just figure out how to make that happen. How do I go to the credit screen, or how do I go to the game now? And so I kind of would make these separate things. I might have the game in a separate kind of little scene. I have the menu in a separate scene. I have the pause menu in a separate scene. Then now how do I put these things together? So a lot of it's just step by step, like because it's pretty much the same thing. In my experience, it's the same no matter what platform. If I'm doing it in Flash, if I'm doing it in HTML, if I'm doing it in Unreal, Unity, Godot, um, Python, they seem kind of similar. Like you need to have a button, what size it is, the position, the size, and then what happens when you press it. Connecting it to some kind of action. And
Okay.
And so that's how I typically will just usually I have something in mind. Well, it's that, and then also like just going through tutorials and tutorials about everything that seems relevant and stuff that doesn't even seem relevant because there's, usually what's difficult is understanding what you don't know when it comes to a new platform because there could be a lot of different quirks that aren't apparent in the stuff that you're doing.
Okay. Ooh, actually, speaking of quirks, that's a good segue. So I know you've used a lot of different programming languages, and I know you've used game engines. But in terms of actual like platforms, like I know you've worked in like mobile. I know you've worked on console games and VR as well. Were there any like particular quirks when you were like jump trying to like? Actually, what was your first start? Did you what in your like going into UI? Was it like console, mobile, VR? Which one did you start
Oh,
with?
I still haven't. I don't think I've done anything that shipped. I haven't done anything that shipped on console, unfortunately. Except was it? So Steam Deck, I guess, almost counts. So
Okay, so PC.
PC, yeah, yeah.
Okay, so
So
PC, mobile, and VR.
yeah. Basically, PC, mobile, VR. Um, those are the platforms, But then there's like, I've done, web. Also like just installations, which are typically your PC running in a box or something.
Right. Wait, so which one of those did you start with?
What I start with? Oh, I started doing Flash.
Okay.
So yeah, back
Oh
in
man. Oh,
yeah, back in 1998, I got my first computer. I I was really, I just finally had my own internet. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do whatever I want on the internet now. And so I came across the Parappa the Rapper website and it really changed my life. I was a big fan of the game. I don't remember how I found it. Maybe I just searched for Parappa, but it had a really nice website. And what was fascinating to me about that was that because I didn't even know what Flash was that you I was familiar with Macromedia because they had Director and stuff. So a lot of those
yeah.
CD. CDs you put in would have like it was run by a director.
Wait,
And
was that like ActionScript 1?
uh yeah, I don't know if they
Oh
even called
God.
it Spec back then.
Oh,
I think
oh, that
so.
was before they called it ActionScript. Oh my God.
I'm not sure if they even called it that at that, because I was doing it like they used to have like these drop downs. It was technically action script, I guess, but I was doing it by like drop down initially.
Yeah, I
And
thought 3 was bad. That's what I started with. Oh my God, I cannot
I
imagine.
used oh no 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 I started in Flash 3, but it was action script 1, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. I'm just like, I just feel like my skin crawling because I thought ActionScript 3 was a lot to learn. I'm like, yo, ActionScript 1, man, he been through it. Oh my God.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's easier. I think back then it was way more forgiving, and I think a lot of people fell out of Flash when it got to ActionScript 3 because it got more structured, and it made it easier. It made it easier to make bigger projects, and like at that point, I'd been doing Flash stuff for a long time,
Yeah,
so it was kind of like a natural progression, because I ran into these walls of just building a big game and like I don't even know where the hell this code is, like because you could put code on anything, so it's difficult to kind of retrace your steps of how things work. But I start, like my start in UI is literally like, what is this program Flash? Let me go through the help file and let me put down a button and make the button hover. When you react to your mouse, make the button go to a different screen, a different frame or something like that. So a lot of my earlier tests was just like, how does this work? You know, and just seeing like what I can put on the screen and how I can make it interactive, how I can change things. I just went through. What I would do is just do tutorials. I would come home from school and spend the whole afternoon doing tutorials, and just see like what useful things that I learned. Eventually, like okay, like I'm making a website. Like how do I make this? How do I make the box of text scroll? Then that's like okay, now I'm getting into ActionScript. Um, but I wasn't thinking of it at that time. But
yeah.
and so like I started to see more games coming out from Newgrounds, and I was always trying to figure out like,
Oh
how the
man,
hell-
Newgrounds.
yeah. So that was key in the inspiration because they were doing some dope stuff. It was really that game Pico that really changed my whole perspective because I was like, how the hell did they do this in Flash? Because it just didn't make any sense to me. Like I
Yeah,
didn't. I like and I think that yeah, I don't think the game. I think back then I don't think there was variables. So like actually like I had um yeah, I think I'd like decompiled the game or something like that to see how it worked. And it was like timeline. It was just all timeline, like
yeah.
jumping the keyframes. Like if you have 5 health, you're on the fifth keyframe. And it just blew
Yo,
my mind. Like these guys are so
yo,
smart.
nah, nah. I'm gonna find a different career. You lost me at doing health on keyframes. Nah, I'm not with it. Nah, sign me out.
Yeah.
Log me off.
But
Mm,
and I think what was interesting about the Flash stuff is that like people it was really limited, so it forced people to think really creatively until it kind of became more flexible. But that's where I got my start, and that kind of led to I was doing websites for like I had done a Pokemon website with my nephew. That was like one of my big collaborations. It was the kind of thing where like I said I was doing it for him, but I was really doing it for myself because he just happened to be into Pokemon. I was too old to be into Pokemon, and so but I like video game stuff, and so like I just like to put things out there and see how people reacted, and eventually I made my first game, which was Thugjacker, and that kind of got me started in making games, and because I didn't know if people would even pay me because I'm just doing these free games. I just made free games on the internet like everybody else did, and bringing it back to UI is just one. It's just it's a necessary part of it. You can't I remember it was difficult for me to figure out how to do the health bars on the enemies and stuff like that, and or how do I make each one of the enemies have a health bar, and and just make sure that the information that's always on the health bar is it's correct. I think that's the most important part because having outdated information and stuff, it kind of destroys the fun of the game.
So just because I know that you worked on it, and I think those would be interesting things to talk about. So like doing UI for like built-in installations and also for VR. How Did you feel that there was anything like different in your approach that needed to happen for those?
So yeah, V to me VR is it's completely different. And I think the reason why is just I didn't grow up with VR. So like, the way I think they're like the way I would design a game or make a site or some kind of app or that kind of thing. A lot of it's just I feel like it's intuitive just because I've seen a game like this before, or I used an app like this. I've seen a website like this, or I might have tried something similar like that. And when it came to VR, and so like yeah, the reason Oculus hired me was that nobody knows what the fuck what the fuck to do. How does this stuff work? You know, and so and so it was interesting because like I feel like I was just around a bunch of people that were smarter than me that had ideas about how the stuff would work, and then I would just give it a shot. Like, oh, how about this? And then I would I would show them and kind of it was just back and forth. And what was exciting about that is the feeling that well, the most exciting thing to me about VR is just that just to make something, even if it's like my blurry thumbnail image and I put it in VR, it's like, wow, look, I can get closer to it.
Yeah,
I can look around it, and it just makes everything feel different, when you're living, I like to say like living amongst your work. And that's really exciting to me. But then there's like a lot of things that I don't understand about conventions, so it's a lot of trial and error. And maybe I think there's a lot more examples of stuff you can point to right now, like, okay, just copy what this game has done, because it's kind of a proven method. And
yeah,
so I feel like there's still a lot I haven't even scratched the surface with that type of stuff. But it just really, to me, it feels really time consuming, to where it kind of is difficult for the type of projects that I do, like on independently, because it just takes really long, and there's a lot of
okay,
iteration times, and I'm still kind of learning. And it kind of pushes the limits of like my programming, my visual design. And yeah, so I that's kind of what brought me back to, let me just do something more straightforward, like
okay,
with a visual novel type of game. And then now,
yeah,
like, I can think about, like, okay, like, how would I how so now that I have the kind of the game engine working, so now I can think about different ways of representing, so that the story and stuff is in place, but I can still change the representation of the visual representation, so it could be on a flat screen. So like, I'm building one game, it works on mobile, on PC, kind of a widescreen, aspect ratio. But then, like, I thought about, like, what if I wanted it to make this a portrait view or something like that, just to make it easier for people on the phone. Or what if I wanted to display it in VR? I think there's opportunities to try to experiment with that, but it's easier once I have something that's already kind of determined. And I
yeah,
think the difficult thing about VR can be where you can do anything, so it's hard to even decide on something in the first place.
gotcha. I know you also did some work for like an AR mobile app too
Yeah,
in one of your indie installations.
yeah. For this project, I worked with this company called DK&A in Berlin, and I had worked on another project. It was another installation for them, and I was um I still am. I was kind of in my infancy of learning Houdini at that point. And so
Yeah,
Houdini, what do you call it? The visual effects tool.
yeah.
It kind of just changed. It's one of those things that, like, I'm sorry, guys. I'm just gonna go on tangents, but 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 kind of how I progressed is just finding a technology that I'm interested in, and just engaging with it, seeing what I could do with it, trial and error. A lot of stuff doesn't end up going anywhere, but then, like, then maybe opportunity arises. And in this case, it was this AR project, and one of the developer I worked with on that, I worked with previously, and he was kind of schooling me on some Houdini stuff, and he knew I was learning, so he recommended me for this project. And so this was an installation for it's this Dolby Theater in I think it's in New York. Um, and it was like I think they had the first level of the building set up to where it's like a museum, and each room like kind of museum and art exhibits, whatever. And each room had a different theme, and you can like put up this app. The app that you use to register for it, you could use scan these um AR, I don't even call it AR markers around the building, and it would just
Yeah.
some kind of interactive art. I mean, it's not even interactive. I think it was just and a basically animation, a 3D animation that would play out. And so that was the first. I think that was the first time I did something that came out in AR. And similarly, I thought it was just really cool to feel like this thing you have has this thing you've made in the computer screen uh, is dimensional and kind of in your actual world. I thought that stuff was really fascinating. So that
Okay.
was cool. It was a cool, but I'm more excited that I got to actually demonstrate the Houdini stuff that I was learning at the time.
Nice. Yeah, I definitely see what you mean where it's that like a lot of because of just like how much time you spent like dealing with like the web or just using the computer, a lot of your understanding of even across working technologies, there's just you have a sort of basic idea of like what's clean and functional and easy and straightforward to use. But then when you jumped into like VR and AR, it's like actually when were you working at Oculus? Was that
Oh,
before like the first headset came out?
uh, no, not that early. I think I started in 2014.
Okay, all right,
I think
so it was a while
I
ago.
was just I did a year contract, I think from 2014 to 2015.
Okay.
And
But still like early enough that it was like right at the beginning. We're still pretty early in like the VR phase where it's like there's no rules yet. Like no one's released anything, so no one has any idea of like what to do.
mm-hmm.
So you were like right at the ground level of like, let's try this. Let's see if it works.
Oh yeah, yeah. And it was really exciting.
Okay.
Yeah, I think
That is cool.
yeah, just lucky. Just lucky to, be because it's like kind of a once I don't know, it's just like a just some crazy stuff that happened.
Yeah. Do you feel that was probably like the most challenging project, like the time at Oculus?
Oh yeah, definitely. Because I think that no matter how well I think I feel like I didn't even understand what I was doing.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, it was because it's like literally just like we're gonna figure it out. We're just gonna try.
Yeah.
Do you know if any of your work is like still being used at like I don't know
Probably
if you
not. I don't think so. Um, I think I mostly worked on prototypes that were kind of
okay.
like so there was some early apps that were I think they were just trying different things.
Right.
I worked on this. I worked on prototype for app that then they built the app. So
Right.
like when I look for the one I made looks like the one that actually came out.
Yeah.
But I was just testing how how the different indicators and stuff like that, trying different just trying different um like widget styles and stuff like that,
Okay.
because
So
it's just I think it's faster for me to try 10 different things and have because you have to do the I think that real thing had to be done in C++, so it took longer.
right, that makes sense. Yeah, when you were just going. I mean, if you're okay going an action script one, you're okay just going fast in anything. I'm not gonna let that go. Like like you got props just for like, yo man, I was just doing health bar on the timeline. Like, nah, you can sign me out.
uh,
I'd be changing careers.
and one of the reasons that I actually was drawn to Godot is that to me it kind of feels like it kind of felt like working in Flash back in the day. But the same kind of problems. As I'm learned at the end of the project, like some of the stuff, like it's really convenient when you're early on, but it became more difficult as the project grew. Uh,
Yeah.
so it's still like I was trying to run away from Unity, but maybe I'll be back. It's still really good. tool.
So let's see, what was the other thing I wanted to ask you? Oh, in terms of games, because I know that's like a lot of the stuff that you've done is like games for UI. Were there any recent games that you've seen like, yo, I really kind of like what they did and like how they conveyed that information, or like just anything cool or different they did with their UI that you like stood out to you?
um, for some reason, my favorite recent UI is Astral Chain on the Nintendo Switch
Ooh,
from Platinum Games. I
yo,
think
yeah,
they really push the Switch. Things fans are running full
you know
speed
that, yeah,
the whole
that,
time, but
yeah,
it's all I think is awesome. Like the game is pretty cool. Kind of Devil May Cry ish, a little bit of platforming, but I really loved that. Like the the UI seemed really integrated into the world. I guess you could say a lot of it's diegetic, and I think actually like some of it might actually be physically in the 3D and that kind of thing. I'm really interested in I'm excited about 3D stuff in general in UI, and so
okay,
games that do that really well or find it. I think in a lot of it's just like finding an excuse to do it, because I think a lot of times it's just like it's just less practical to
right,
do things like that. But
yeah,
maybe it's slower, but it's so awesome when it's done right.
yeah.
Another thing that stands out to me is the the weapon materia screen in Final Fantasy VII Remake. Like it it kind of it's I guess it's kind of like a separate screen where you can customize your weapon, and it takes you away to this kind of like you know space nebula solar system type of thing, and it's totally unnecessary. And it's even a pain in the ass because it had to, the game had to load a little bit to get to the screen back and forth. But
Yeah,
it's so freaking cool, and I appreciated that, and it didn't need to be done, but they kind of went above and beyond to make it uh look amazing. And that kind of stuff really excites me. And that's one thing that I actually like about the working in web and like I guess agency, like advertising agency work.
ah, I see. Yeah, you because the focus is on just selling people
Yeah,
on just like a visual thing, so you get to play around more with like that sort of visual experience.
yeah, and so I hate it a lot because the timelines are really tight a lot of time, and a lot of times the clients don't know what they want, and or if they do have an opinion what they want, they wait till like it's way too late. and,
Yeah,
but the side effect is that sometimes you get to really work on some really cool fancy things, um but it sucks that sometimes it's one-offs that people might not see, like that,
right.
like an installation or something like that where it's just for that event. Like I worked on this VR installation that was just for Levi's Stadium. Was it the 49er Stadium in San Jose? It was just for there, and you nowhere else you could play it.
Yeah,
So and it's like, and it was crazy to me because like the people that like the fans that did play it, like they spent so much money on these tickets, and they're sitting down and playing my VR thing. That's I thought that was really cool, and that's the thing that I love the most. Regardless of what I'm doing, UI, whatever, like to see the reactions of the people, the users. That's the that's what I do. That's what I do this stuff for.
yeah. Okay. Actually, this question. One last thing, because I know
Mm.
you've worked on like a bunch of tools, a bunch of technology. Is there any platform that you have like never had gotten a chance to touch that you'd really like to be on? Because I know you've even done stuff in game, out of game.
I think only really console stuff, I guess. Console or some new form of VR, AR, or whatever, like the Apple headset or something like that. Um, like I think I'm really anxious for the time when like my mom has a VR AR headset, because I think the thing that sucks for me, is just like I can make something really cool, but nobody ever is gonna see it unless I if I physically put it on their head.
Yeah.
And so and so I think that a lot of uh, I just want more people to be able to play the stuff that I make, or just be able to share it with more people.
Right.
That's one thing that I do love about webs still, is that you just send the link,
Yeah.
and it'll work, and so that's one of the benefits of that platform.
Yeah, I can see that where it's like, yeah, you work on this cool specialty thing, and it's like, all right, only people in New York who are like in this exact borough at this exact time and can
Yeah.
afford can buy to go to this specific venue are
Yeah,
gonna see what you built.
exactly. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff I haven't even been able to see myself. Yeah.
Oh yeah, oh man, that is rough. Okay, there. Where is this question section? Yo, give me the comments. Zoom, don't do this to me.
Oh no.
It's really just not giving me the comment screen right now.
Hard mode.
There we go. There it is. Thank God. Okay, so let's check. All right, I don't see any questions for you right now. All right, so I get to keep asking you questions, and if anyone has any, they can drop them in, and I'll come back to that later.
Yeah, please questions, huh?
But in the meantime, I'll keep going.
Sure. No, don't tell me. Come on, tomorrow. You can't say I'll keep going and then not go. Hey, am I here by myself?
Oh, oh crap! Oh, I hit the button to like stop speaking. That was what it was. My bad.
Okay. I'm
My
sorry, man.
bad. Sorry about the. Yeah, no, no, no. I tapped and muted myself. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Yeah. So the visual novel. So I know you said you wanted to, have like a scoped, reasonable project for when you finish it. So afterwards, do you have any plans on what you want to do next? Like maybe like some chapters are on some different platforms, like maybe mobile or
Oh,
maybe looking at some
it's
ports.
be clear, it's going to be mobile and Steam on launch. Uh,
Okay. Oh,
so yeah, that's where I'm launching. It assuming everything goes swell. And so, but that's that's the platforms I've been building it on. And so really my plans is to get it out. I'm trying to just push it out as the early access, just because I could, I could work on this till this time next year and still not really release the first part. And so I have to just get it out. And my plan is to uh, clean up some things that I or experiment. Actually, I really didn't have enough time to experiment with things that may or may not have worked. So I
right,
wanted to go back and try some different things, some ideas that people have suggested that I haven't had the chance to um, explore. And so I want to hopefully get rid of the serious problems, start making some improvements. But the goal is really to do episode 1. And so I don't know how long that'll take. Like this game is supposed to be about 30 minutes long. I'm aiming maybe for around 4 hours long for episode 1. So but it based on how long it took me to do certain things um for the first part, I can try to make decisions about how long should it be and that type of thing. And because I'm just making assumptions right now, but I haven't had any people play it. So
right,
the idea is to just use the episode 0 as a kind of understanding of what worked and what didn't work, and work towards episode 1, and find some way of making these things faster, bringing other people involved. I didn't know how to really get people involved as I was putting it together, because it's
right.
kind of this big weird mess that I'm doing, because I really wanted to establish the tone of what's the story I was going to tell. Like I have a friend that wanted to help with writing, but I wanted to establish the tone of it first,
Yeah, that
um,
makes sense.
before that if somebody else's personality gets involved.
Yeah,
So yeah, I'm just just seeing what happens and trying to get to episode 1 that for now. And then I'm going to be what, what I love the internet. So so I've had this predicament. Like I've made all these games in Flash, not all these, but a handful of games in Flash back in the day. But I don't have a way of getting them on modern devices. So I've
Yeah.
thought about recoding games in Unity and all kinds of other different tools and Godot and all kinds of stuff. But recently, the like some open source tools have kind of progressed to the point where you can just run the Flash stuff natively in the browser, through emulation in JavaScript. And so I have a demo of my first game. It's a beat 'em up game called Thug Jacker. It's about a thug that gets jacked, yeah, and he has to get his bike back. And so my next thing would be to re-release that hopefully on mobile, maybe turn it into a proper app. So there's some technical issues that I need to work through and kind of go back and rework some things to make it work in this new style, but it works. And so I'm planning to try to stagger the new releases with the old releases because I've just been inconsistent. That's my biggest problem in my head.
Okay, interesting. Oh, so I kind of like that though. The idea that you're like, yo, like we're gonna go back to like what I started with. Like you're going back to Flash. Am I gonna see you on Newgrounds? Am I gonna see?
I want to,
I knew it.
I'm planning to release Cheddar Beach on Newgrounds as well
Let's
if it
go.
works, you know. Hopefully, but it's like a lot of these things is like if it works, if it works.
Nah, nah,
I
nah,
gotta try
it'll
it
work.
first. And so I haven't tried the web exporter for the game in a while. So yeah.
All right, I will definitely make sure to check it out there. Oh, we got some questions. All right. Okay, all right. Question from Tim. He said if you're wait, you Jamaican?
Um
You family? We fam?
no, I'm not Jamaican, man.
Ah,
No, my dad's from Grenada. So I'm a
okay.
Grenadian.
Oh man, he had me hyped. Tim, you had me hyped. I was like, oh what, yo. I was like, yo, man, I'll fly out. We'll go get some jerk chicken, bro.
I like jerk chicken.
All right, I gotta talk to you, Tim. You got my hopes up. Can't believe you did that to me. All right, another question from Tim.
I know.
Why is your company named Sokay? What was the inspiration behind
Okay,
that?
hold on. So let's say hear about the game dev scene where you're from if you're involved in it. Oh yeah. So the second part of this question. I'm in LA, and I think my main involvement in game dev scene in LA is just going to game dev drink ups and whatever mixers. There was what was it, Beer Wednesdays? Used to be in Orange County. I used to go to that. So I like to just go to mixer events. I guess see who's local and make friends. Um, and I haven't worked with any Jamaican or Grenadian developers. That would be cool though.
All right.
Sokay, Sokay, Sokay is the only form of modesty you will ever get from me. It's just my way of saying, like we're not bad. Our our games aren't bad. So it's okay. And I think that really comes to like I don't know if it's just inherently the island culture. I'm very not an islander by my nature. If anybody that was here before knows how stressed I was just to talk just to talk here. But I think my dad kind of put it in my heart to don't take it easy. Take it easy and have a good time. And so really with all this stuff is like, yeah, I don't know, with each project it's like I'm probably not gonna make any money. um I don't know if somebody if anybody's gonna play this, you know but I'm always trying to have a good time with it for sure. And I'm really make sure that everything that I'm making represents myself in a way that represents myself in a way that nobody else could.
Right. Hold on one second. Sorry. Just close the
Oh,
page. All right, cool. From Chris, who I believe does also work in UI. A classic trap in UI is that if you do your job right, people rarely notice. However, if you do it wrong, people will complain. In your career, oh, he does work in UI. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
This is a fellow UI dev question. In your career, can you talk about an example of both? Like a situation where you did your job right, nobody saw anything, and then you messed, or a situation where you messed up and then everybody said something to you.
Hmm. Yeah, these are job interview questions that I never do good at. So I've probably lost the job already. So I just don't think about things like this. Like it's kind of something I inherently know. But you know, if I'm doing my job right, if we're all doing our job right, this is something that's going to be caught by QA early, uh, early QA, or if you're lucky enough to have QA or just testing, but I think that's an important part. Um, is the yeah, if you're doing your job really well, nobody's gonna notice it because the thing is that the moment someone clicks the button and it doesn't do what they want, then they're done. Like trash game. you know, but I don't know. Like there is I think I'm just because there's as much as one reason I feel like I don't know a lot about this stuff. There's always more to know, but people, people will really stick to a game that has crappy interface. Like if the gameplay is compelling enough, people will stick with it, no matter how bad it is. It can
Yeah,
be
man,
annoying.
I played a whole lot of Fantasy Star Online, and that game's UI, man.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I just like because I'm not an MMO player, and my whole like I think the worst experience in my career or my career as a gamer is trying to learn how to play Final Fantasy 14, like how to get to the place where the event is. Like I don't know where's the location. This mini map, you go to the sub map, and it's like a completely different like layout. Like I don't understand this stuff, and so.
Did
But
you
then
just
the
give up
game
on
is
that whole
compelling.
genre?
Yeah, yeah. And I guess it's the MMO genre. So I don't know about rules because there's a lot of games that break the rules that are very successful.
All right, cool. So we got a question from Tanasha. Apologies if I said that wrong. Do you find it challenging when combining typography, color palettes, buttons, animations, and imagery if the game needs to take a different direction at the last minute?
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of my experiences is within like um marketing and ad agencies. And so like one of the things that I quickly learn, and it's kind of a battle, is just to not get attached to the designs early on, especially early on, because a lot of times the project will be pitched with like certain mock-ups, concept art or whatever, um, where it looks finished and it looks like this is how it's going to be, but you really never know that what they're going to change. It could just be the color, but it could be could be more intense than that. And so I think as I start developing something, like I might in a prototype phase, I might try to just okay, so I rough out, layouts of buttons and that kind of thing, and then uh as I start getting things working, then now I'll import the actual images of what the buttons are supposed to be like, which would be a kind of from a mock-up still that's not necessarily greenlit. And over time, I'll kind of start updating pieces as I have time, or as whatever the deadline is. Maybe it has to look a certain level of polish by a certain amount of time. So sometimes you don't have any choice where it's like this has to look decent by this date. So even if this isn't finished, I have to update it to at least a certain quality. But that's always it's challenged when things change, but I don't have a problem with that if it's like I think I tend to have a problem if it's just like it seems arbitrarily like this isn't making it better or worse. This is just some this is an opinion that that's making a lot of work for somebody else. so, so
Gotcha. What up?
thank you. Thank you for having a question.
Yes, thank you. Let me make sure that's everyone. Okay,
Yeah, and
cool.
so I guess I can clarify a few things as well. So I I think I'm best when I'm kind of working amongst a kind of a team of different UI UX people, and so like typically I will work with a UX designer that has an idea of the flow of the screen or the app in mind, or the gameplay or whatever, and they've kind of thought, I always consider them like the wise men or whatever, because they thought through every single possibility, way more deeper than I would be. And so I usually trust that they like understand, they thought it through. So I'm just following. I usually can just follow them blind, and then we're gonna be in a good place. and then and then we have the UX artists, and they're the ones that are responsible for the look, the overall look of the thing, the designer. So they're mocking up in Photoshop or Figma or whatever, that type of thing, and they make the look of what it's supposed to look like. And my job is to typically match what that's supposed to look like. So I'm matching the functionality of the UX team. It might be like, okay, you have to filter. I worked on this leaderboard for New World, so a lot of the discussions was how the filters worked with the UX designer. And then the artist decides how it's going to look, and then I work with a UI engineer, which usually is the person that's setting up all the initial, give me the kind of the canvas to work with. They'll set it up, the buttons, kind of, roughly. Sometimes, sometimes it's rough. Sometimes they'll do kind of finished work, and I'm like, what do I do now? And so, but that's kind
Right.
of these are the typical kind of team members I work alongside with. And it can change. Like some projects I've worked with directly with, the 3D modelers, and integrating the UI in 3D space, and the effects artists, and that type of thing as well. And sometimes
Right.
a sound designer, yeah. So, and so integrating the sound effects, that type of thing.
Oh wait, no, Chris. Before you go, you got any openings? You gotta. Was that an interview question? You bring in?
What happened?
No, no, no. Chris said that he just said this was great talk and he had to
Okay.
bounce. But I was gonna ask right before he left if he had an opening for you because I was
Oh,
like, seems like an interview question.
oh yeah. Well, yeah, I guess I'll find out. It's
He'll just surprise you. He's like, you've been accepted.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I just like I don't know. I'm trying to find my way still. I make my stuff independently. A lot of times I work contracts. Sometimes I work staff on places. Um, you know, and I'm just having to I just see what happens.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome. Nah, I like that mentality of just like, yeah, we'll just do the thing that you like. We'll just, take the contract work and continue making the things that you enjoy.
Mm.
So I will say thank you so much. We just wrapped it up. Yeah, we're about at time. Thank you so much for doing this. This was a lot of fun.
Hey, thank you for making this easy easy for me.
You made it easy. You just like talked about the things you know, which is I definitely saw was a recurring theme in this talk is that like there's the things that you know, and then there's the things that you give your credit for yourself for knowing, which is a lot less. And I'm like,
Oh, okay. Well, thank you. You're my career coach now. You're hired.
okay, all right.
All right. All
Yeah,
right.
but
Peace out then. We're
for everyone
done.
else who came, thank you
Oh,
so much for coming. This was it. This is our last fireside chat for the year. Obviously we'll still, be hanging out in the chat whenever, but like we'll see you all again in 2024. Take care, everybody.
all right. See ya. Thank you.
All right. So I think this is going to just auto end the recording as soon as we end this